Hola. Hope you're having a good day. So, again, ahora I get it. And I hope you're ready. Let's just move on to the next part of this story, of this video. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. I mean, I think y'all might think um, that I'm okay with singing, but it's not easy. But I do it. I realize that there's things in life we have to put ourselves in position of vulnerability, things that we might not feel comfortable, but that's okay. In order to progress in life, we have to challenge ourselves, and that's one way that I'm challenging myself. And there's several. There's a lot. For years, so I'm from a Latino family. I'm Mexican American, American Mexican, however you state it. I don't want to get into too much of the dynamic of the actualities of my family history right now, but yeah, that's my background. And even though my family, my parents, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents solely spoke Spanish, somehow it didn't get passed down to me or my brother or my cousins. None of us really were able to get taught that. They have these stories about us saying a few Spanish words and they laughed and thought it was cute. And then in the household, we'd hear them talk Spanish, but not to us. It'd be to each other, and it was usually when they didn't want us to understand what they were talking about. So I didn't. I wasn't blessed with the opportunity to learn Spanish that same way. So, over time, I looked at it as, man, that sucks. I never learned Spanish. I took classes in school, but I mean, I thought they were mediocre, and maybe I didn't put in as much effort as I needed to. I took a class in college, and same thing. I did really try, but it just felt like it was a little far off, and maybe my priorities got mixed up, and I didn't pursue it. So time goes by. I'm kind of just feel like it's at a loss. Again, this person comes into my life and changes my perspective, and I realize it's not too late. So over these past several months, maybe a year plus, I've looked into studying and doing self progression in that way, and now I'm maybe 50% there, but it's a long ways from where I was. I mean, maybe 20%. I knew some things, but not too much, and I'm happy about that. I mentioned in another video that I want to progress in learning Korean and German, and I think that it's important for us to challenge ourselves. So, and it kind of ties into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. So, I actually want to read something, and with that, I'm going to touch on a few things. So, it ties into a little bit how I grew up. Not the same exact story, but some things that I thought were an interesting topic. So, as I said, that there's some things that I do to challenge myself. Another one is I do forms of exercise, different ones, but I grew into this pattern of doing a daily run or walk, and I'd go around the environment that I was, a certain neighborhood that I lived in, and in that, there's a lot that's done. I mean, personally, like I'm a man of faith of the Lord Jesus, and so I definitely spend time with Him. I pray, but also there's things that come to mind, and this is one of the things that came to mind last night when I went for my walk. And so I'm kind of going to just share with that, and then I'm going to touch on some thoughts that I have about this subject. So I was thinking about, there's a verse in the Bible, and it's very practical, regardless of where you're at in life. But the verse goes, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Now there's so many verses that surround this verse right here, and that are very powerful. But this verse in itself speaks volumes in what it's communicating. I'll go over it one more time. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. I mean, I don't know what kind of household you grew up in. I don't know your background and the way you approach things. I mean, there are people that maybe this is something that they've had in their life. For me and my perspective and the things that I've encountered, sometimes people get one thing right, sometimes two, but maybe not the third. And to have them all lined up, I think that's really, I wanted to say powerful, but more than that, it's something that it's not, in my point of view, very common unless people embrace it in this way. And so I'm going to read this because I think it's easier rather than, I mean, I know the concept, but the way that I wrote it, I think it came out pretty decently. So it's me, we grew up fiery and passionate. I was shy, but I learned how to be confrontational. And it didn't help that I held things in, because then it would come out the wrong times, at the wrong times, in the wrong ways. Sometimes with outbursts. I felt misunderstood, accused of wrong, things, okay, in the same context, things like nobody really listened at times. And because of the way I grew up, I felt like I had to prove myself. The same person, the girl, the woman that I have referenced, she told me how her dad, her father, never raised his voice. And I thought, man, I wish that could have been me, and yearned for that, especially as I grew older and became a man. But I had the wrong thought process because I would think of what I wasn't rather than what I would be, the direction I need to go, the man that I would become, the man that I am now. Yeah, so I think this all ties together. Relationships, we're faced with the challenges of who we are in them, how we function in them, how we communicate, what we deal with, what we feel. As I had referenced with myself, I had a form of blame on why I didn't take steps in certain ways, of how I was. I didn't take enough responsibility for the changes that I needed to make. And that's not to say that I didn't embrace this. I didn't take responsibility and I didn't make changes, because I definitely did. But there was enough there that I want to say held me hostage to those ways we as people hold on to this form of identity that this is just who I am. This is what I've known. And we do it in a way that we embrace it. It's not that this isn't true. Like, yeah, that is what you've known. That is what you're doing. This is, in a sense, who you are at this time. But when you embrace it, you actually do form it into your identity in a sense that you're kind of locked in. You're not even allowing yourself the opportunity to shift, to change, to redirect. And in that, like I said, you're holding yourself hostage. It's not like somebody else is holding you hostage. You do it to yourself. That's an issue that rolls over to how we function, how we communicate. And let me go back to that verse I stated. So be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. Like I stated, I grew up in a certain type of household. It's what I knew how to raise my voice. We would talk over each other. Um, it sucked, honestly. I felt like there was a lot of imbalance in it for sure. And it wasn't like I was involved in every interaction, of course not. But just even watching it, sometimes you're just watching it and you're thinking, man, that doesn't look good. Other times you're trying to stop it, and so you engage and it becomes worse. Um, but I think the thing is the process of mind that you're in is so stuck that you're not able to slow down and think, let me actually consider something else than what I'm thinking. I'll be honest. I think this is the reality that I'm coming from. I think there is a lot of bad points of view. Okay. And I'll just say that I've had plenty of conversations with people that I think their point of view is at the very least off by some measure. In that, I've learned that I could still listen to them. I could still give them the respect, the place to have a say, even if I'm like, no, I completely disagree. And there's a way to manage these things appropriately. Um, I mentioned my family and the way I grew up. My dad and my mom have different personalities. My dad, he would raise his voice as well, but I don't think it was his personality per se, because I mean, he has certain ways to him, of course, but yeah. So, anyways, um, there's a whole beautiful story to my parents and the way that things played out. And when I say beautiful, there was like the beauty and the beast portion where, there was an ugly, but it ended up really sweet. But my dad, things shifted, and at some point he embraced the change, and it showed how his demeanor was slower and he wouldn't react so much, and it'd become more of, let me process these things. And as time progressed, my mom did it the same as well. My mom actually has such a sweet demeanor, and I'm very grateful for my family, for my parents. And um, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about how grateful I am, and the things that that are just personal. But when I seen that in my dad, I realized as well that I wasn't like that. And to kind of be honest, I was a little bit more like my mom in a way that I took things to heart. Um, I I would try to handle things a certain way, but at a certain point, things would trigger me in a sense where I'd kind of start to escalate, or they would escalate, and I'd respond to that. And I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. I didn't want it to trigger me, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't. I would go through the process. I would do pretty well, and all of a sudden something else would trigger me. As time progressed, I ended up learning the only way that you can actually get to that place is when you don't allow yourself to be offended. You have a form of humility where you're like, even if that's the case, even if someone thinks something of that, even if there's accusations against you, even if there's fingers pointed, even if people treat you a certain way, it might be personal. It might be directly at you, and it might even be more than one person. But when you don't allow yourself to be offended, when you don't take it in a certain personal way and just recognize, I don't need to react to these moments that are happening to me. I can process and respond with love and respect, and that is your general heart to move in that direction. You realize that these things don't actually have control over you. I say this right now, and I'm going to say it very clearly. There were different things that had control over my life. There were different things that I felt like, oh, man, I really don't have the power over these things. But when you realize you don't have to allow them to control you because you are the person who you are and you're going the direction you're going to go, regardless of the things that happen around you. We approach these things with the problematic responses because we allow it to affect us on a personal way. We dwell on it. We let it make it more important than it really is. Even if it is really important, it becomes something that we feel like we have no control over it. So it's just at a loss. We feel like failures. We feel like all these things, and it's all emotionally based. It's even sometimes thought based. But the point is if someone just stands, if someone just acts, if someone just does, if they just are, it doesn't matter the emotions that are played into it. For example, sports. People talk stuff back and forth, they feel certain ways, but when they're on the field, they need to perform. They realize that stuff has to get pushed to the side. I need to act in the way that I need to handle what I know I need to do. And life is very similar. You need to do what you need to do. Now, there are people that are emotionally shut down, that hold a lot of things in, and that can become problematic. That could be very dangerous even. Like I said, I held a lot of things in, and at times I shifted from reacting and I held things in, but that still could become problematic. And there's a healthy ways to approach that. I mean, to communicate with people that you trust, to say the things that you know that you need to take accountability for, to just be honest with yourself and with others. And there's a lot of freedom with that. I mean, like I said, I approach certain things a certain way, and it talks about bringing things to the light. Like, don't hide them. I was good at that. I didn't know how to allow people to see these things that were hurting me, that I struggled with, that I thought that I felt just weren't okay. And some of those things are messed up. But when you hide it, it holds you, keeps you bound, it has you hostage because you're afraid to be seen. When you bring it to the light, it's like it's already seen. Okay, like, yeah, that's it. Um, you know, my hands are dirty, whatever it is. And you don't have to be hostage to that anymore. Regardless if there's consequences that go along with it, and a lot of times there is, but hopefully it helps you to take accountability where you can do things differently. You can make the changes that you need to make. So with that, um, I hope that you guys got an idea, a perspective that allows you to move past yourself, allows you to consider maybe your background, your history, your family, your situation that you grew up in, your situation that you moved into, whatever it came to be, and realize, man, this has happened. This is what I struggled with. This is what I did wrong. This is how this relates. But let your heart be open and vulnerable enough to consider something different, to make a change, to shift in a certain direction. And when you're not capable, which you feel unable to move there on your own, look for help. Be willing to humble yourself. That's huge. I mean, I say this thing and it sounds like it's a personal thing, only something you deal with. But when you're in a relationship, when you have a partner, when you're in a marriage, your partner deals with it too. They might not be there, but there's different ways that it's dealt with. Whether they feel it because they they feel for you, whether they distance themselves because of the way they view you. But when you embrace this and become this person, this man, this woman, whatever distinction you're in, it reflects and gives light to those that you encounter, and hopefully, especially your partner. And I know sometimes those relationships are sometimes even the most difficult to deal with. But be courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't just cry yourself to the self-pity. Pick up your head. Look up. Realize there is hope. There is hope. You have an opportunity to walk in a new direction, to change. And there's something that you need to embrace in order to get there at times. But for sure, take this into consideration. Don't just write it off because you feel like, I don't want to change. I don't want to consider these things. And you have that opportunity to make that choice. But really, like I said, there's consequences. And there's going to be a time when you're going to look back and be like, man, maybe I should have listened. Why didn't I humble myself? Why did it take this for me to finally make the decision? For finally, after I lost this, after all this has happened, now, why was I so foolish? Why was I so closed-minded to embrace something that can actually change me and help my situation, something that I actually care about, something that is valuable and beautiful. So anyways, yeah, I maybe you could see some of my passion in the way I talk. So that's just a bit of it actually. But yeah, I do care, and I hope that y'all really consider what I said and hope that it can make a difference. And like I said, there's comments, so if necessary, use them. And I will see you soon. Well, hypothetically. So, come out. Thank you.